Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors suffer a 117-93 defeat to the Minnesota Timberwolves at Target Center on Thursday. Fairly expected result, I suppose, when you think about Stephen Curry being out and thinking that the Timberwolves would probably respond from the disappointment of game one. So it's maybe somewhat expected, but also very disappointing in the process as well, because the Warriors actually gave themselves a slight chance in the second half, in the third quarter, when they cut the margin to 7, which Thandeka has already commented on, saying this is on Kerr. Why did he take JK and Buddy when we cut the lead to 7, take out those guys when they cut the lead to 7? Let's get straight into it then. So yeah, like the only two positives from this game that you would say would probably be JK and Trace, which could actually be fairly important rotation discoveries here for the Warriors moving forward in their chances of winning this series. Steve Kerr used all 14 guys in the first half, all 14 available players in the first half, which was quite shocking. I think we all thought, okay, it'll be all hands on deck without Steph, but I don't think any of us thought he'd go to all 14. Albeit Braxton Key only came in for the final 5 seconds defensive possession to close the half. Still, in the first, basically 16, 17 minutes, he used 13 guys, which is quite remarkable, but just goes to show you the desperation, I suppose, he's trying to find in finding, I suppose, rotation combinations that will work with Steph out. And I suppose the production of JK and Trace is potentially, again, an important aspect to that. But aside from that, very little positives for Golden State in this game. And really, you got to look at 2 points. I think 2 points of the game where the Warriors lost it essentially was the start of the game, starting Quinton Post, and the Warriors immediately go down 13-0. And that really, they just never really recovered from that. And then, as Thandeka says, they actually cut the lead to 7 in the second half. And you thought, okay, they've actually got some momentum here. They've got something rolling with this group of pods, Jimmy, Dre, JK, and Buddy. That was the 5 that started the second half. And you thought, okay, they've actually got something rolling here. And then basically within a minute later, he pulls 4 subs. Like pulls Buddy, pulls JK out, pulls Dre out, basically leaves just Jimmy in. And then Minnesota immediately go on a run, and all of a sudden, by the end of the third, they're back up 20 and the game's over. So that was a really poor coaching decision to me. Like, I thought Kuminga, this is the best game we've seen from him since God knows. Like, did he start 8 of 8, or was he was at least 7 of 7 at one point? He had that dunk on Gobert, and then Hield had that 3. And at that point, Kuminga, I think, before he was subbed out in the third quarter, he had 17 points, right? And he was playing really well. And you just have to wonder to yourself, okay, this guy's, been your third leading scorer throughout the regular season. He's clearly one of the more talented players you've got now without Steph in terms of just simply putting the ball in the basket. He hasn't played barely at all over the past few weeks. There's actually no reason why Jonathan Kuminga couldn't have almost played the entire second half. Like, I just don't think he needed to be subbed out at that time. He's finally feeling good about himself. He's playing well. The Warriors are actually, cut the margin to 7. Why does he have to come back out at that point? Like, I understand, like, guys need their rest, right? But JK kind of doesn't. Trace kind of doesn't. They could have just played, I think, a lot more than what they actually did, because those were the 2 positives for the game, and yet they still combined to play, less than 46 minutes, or around 46 minutes. So, yeah, I don't know. They were the 2 points to me. And then, of course, like, without Steph, you're playing with such little room for error that you just can't have 20 turnovers. Like, you can't have 20 turnovers without Steph and expect to win the game. So that's, to me, what the Warriors are going to have to do. I thought their half-court defense was still fine again, but way too many kind of easy opportunities for Minnesota in transition based off the Warriors obviously just missing baskets, particularly early in the game, and struggling offensively. But, of course, like, the turnovers. Like, what are we doing? You're not going to win a game committing 20 turnovers when you've also got Steph Curry sitting on the sidelines. It just leaves no room for error. The Warriors have to play with an intensity, with a concentration level that is sky high. And if they're not, they can't win. It's as simple as that. They can't win. So, I don't know, fingers crossed that the turnover woes might be, helped a little bit in, or might not be as bad in game 3 and moving forward in this series. But there's also, as the guys on the TNT broadcast and inside the NBA were saying, like, when Steph's out, everyone's just got to, move up a rung, and some of the guys are getting the ball and being asked to make plays when they don't usually. And that's why I think the Jimmy trade was so important for the Warriors and so fruitful, is that, okay, now you've got Steph and Jimmy running things, and everyone else can kind of fall into supplementary roles that they're suited to. Now it's like Steph's out, so guys are being asked to do more than what they otherwise would be, and that can lead to poor shot selection and turnovers, which we saw in this game. More comments from you guys here. Then Nick says also dumb turnovers. Absolutely. Says Moody and Pods have been terrible the last 4 games. Well, Pods was the only one in the positives in terms of a plus minus. So the Warriors were actually okay with him on the floor, but the issue for Pods is that he has 11, 6, and 6, couple of steals. So, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, couple of steals, like doing what he does in terms of impacting the game in multiple ways. But 11 points isn't going to cut it when Steph's out. And that's the issue, is that, like, you're going to need someone to step up kind of out of the box. And JK led the way with 18 points in this game. And so he stepped up a little bit, but not in a way where it really, at the end of the day, proved the difference. You're going to need someone to go for 25, 30 plus points. You're going to need one of those weird Buddy Hield games, I suppose, where he has 5 or 6 threes and goes for 20 plus points. Jimmy's another story as well. Like, you're going to need more from him. Again, way too passive. I'm not sure if it's, I don't want to use the pelvic contusion, or any health issue as an excuse for him. I just thought he should have been better in this game. Draymond goes 1 of 6 from 3, pretty standard. You're not going to get 4 threes out of him every game. So the Warriors had, quite a few players in double digits scoring wise, but they just didn't have anyone pop off for anything too significant, and hence why they're limited to 93 points, and of course with the 20 turnovers as well. Priscilla says this proves JK, Butler, and Draymond lineup works. I knew we were going to lose, but I didn't think we would have a chance to win. But then dumb turnovers happened and the game was out of reach. Yeah, again, you kind of back within 7 there in the third quarter, and then some combination of turnovers, curse substitutions, and all of a sudden the game's back out of reach pretty quickly, as you said. FTW Clan says, where is playoff Jimmy? He was way too passive, driving horizontally and looking to kick out instead of going strong to the rim to score. The issue, I think, with him is that I think Gobert and the Timberwolves size on the interior is a big factor. And we saw it kind of late in the fourth quarter of game 1 where Looney was out on the floor, and Looney was really good defensively, but there are a couple of times where Jimmy kind of drives. Gobert's obviously sitting around the paint and Looney's out on the perimeter, and Gobert's right there, and Jimmy's got no other option but to kick it back out to Loon, who has to go into a dribble handoff. So the issue is, like, the Warriors are going to have multiple non-shooters on the floor. The Timberwolves are going to pack the paint, and that becomes an issue for Jimmy Wright, who I still don't think has ever really found his jump shot consistently with the Warriors just yet. Like, it's still, a lot of this stuff is around the rim. And if the Timberwolves are going to pack the paint and there's going to be, multiple guys there, I think at times there's nothing else you can do but try and kick it out. In saying that, like, you saw one time in the third quarter, he actually went at Gobert and got an and one. And it's like, you could probably try him a bit more than you have. And you could be more aggressive looking to score. So part of it, I think, is, again, the Timberwolves packing the paint and the Warriors having some non-shooters out there that they don't have to guard out on the perimeter, and hence why I think Post got the start to try and create some of that spacing. That just simply didn't work at the end of the day. So the Warriors are going to have to try and figure something out here, but Jimmy himself is going to have to be a lot better. There's no doubt about that. FTW Clan says, at least Kuminga got some opportunity to get a rhythm because we're going to need his offense to win one of the next 2. Agree with that. And I suppose that's one of the biggest problems from this game, is he actually did find a rhythm and then Steve pulled him, right? Like, when he really had it going midway through the third quarter there. So I would, based on this, I would expect him to start in game 3 and for them to continue with the Pods, Hield, Butler, Kuminga, Draymond 5. I think that would probably be the most likely scenario for game 3 here. The issue I have with JK and Trace is that they played really well in this game and the Warriors didn't really capitalize on it. And what I mean by that is they're young players. I'm not sure they're going to bring it consistently over the course of a full playoff series. Like, I just don't know if you can expect to get 18 points from Kuminga again. I don't know if you can expect to get 15 points and 6 rebounds from Trace again. Now, other guys are going to step up and perhaps, alleviate that. But like those two guys played well, and that means they probably should get pretty heavy minutes in game 3. But whether they can actually back that up is a different story altogether. Empire says, I don't ever want to see Moody on the floor again during these playoffs. This is a legitimate nightmare. Like, he is a disaster. And I don't want to be too harsh on him, but I don't know what the hell's happened. Like, I said it after game 1, his confidence is shot, right? And I tweeted it out early in this game when Moody actually took to the floor before Kuminga, and Moody all of a sudden, it's just a disaster. He's unplayable. He's doing nothing. It's like all negative. Some of this stuff where he gets stuck with the ball at end of shot clocks, I might have a little bit of sympathy for, because there's a couple of those. He had a couple of those in the third quarter again, where he's just getting stuck with the ball at end of possessions, and he's having to try and do something, and he's just not skilled enough. Like, he's a 3-and-D guy. Like, he's not a guy that you give the ball to and ask to make plays at the end of the shot clock. And, he threw up 2 air balls in a row there in the third quarter. So I have a bit of sympathy for him on that. But I think he's also, at points, he's ending up with the ball in those situations for a reason. And he's just very hesitant. He's just got no confidence right now. And I tweeted out again in the first quarter that, hey, Kuminga might have irrational confidence where that leads to some iffy shot selection and some turnovers and some mistakes. But I'd rather a guy with irrational confidence right now with Steph out than a guy who's just got no confidence at all, right? Like, I'd just rather the irrational confidence guy. So that means to me, Kuminga played way more than Moody in this game, and that's just going to have to be the way for the rest. And I think legitimately Moody might just have to be sat. He might legit have to be sat. I know Steve has already said in his post-game press conference that, hey, we decided we're going to need a lot of guys. We're going to need to try some different things, obviously, to alleviate Steph's absence. Like, okay, I get that, but you've done that for this game. Now I want you to shorten the rotation again. I don't want to see 13 or 14 guys again. And so to me, it's like, all right, the 5 is going to be Pods, Healed, Butler, Kuminga, Draymond, and then it might be from there, GP2, Trace. You might have to play some Pat Spencer. So that's 8, and then maybe Looney. But the Looney stuff is weird to me because he's really played 25 minutes in game 7 against the Rockets and game 1 against the Timberwolves, and he was really good. And then all of a sudden he plays 248 in this game, right? And you can't really, he was a minus 10 in 248. So it wasn't good, but it's also only less than 3 minutes. I think it's hard to necessarily take too much away from that. In saying that, Trace deserved his minutes, so I get it. But these 9 minutes for Kevin Knox, I don't want to see. The 8.5 minutes for Gee, I don't particularly want to see. The 16.5 minutes for Moody, I just don't want to see. And again, some of that was in garbage time there in the final minutes. The 3 minutes 18 for Post, I don't think you can see that. So it's really just going to have to be Butler, Green, Hield, Pajemski, Kuminga, those main 5, I think, and then some Gary Payton to guard Ant for a bit, some Trace as a backup, I think, as your kind of primary center off the bench now, which is it's just shocking that I'm saying that. It's stunning that I'm saying that Trace Jackson-Davis has now gone ahead of Looney in Post after being 3rd in line for so much of the last few months, basically all the last few months. So I don't know. It's weird, but this is kind of what happens when the Warriors are in a tough situation, obviously with Steph off the floor and on the sidelines with that hamstring injury. Thandeka says we just need to win one game at home, and hopefully Steph comes back game 5. I don't think he will. I think you'll probably see him back for game 6, so long as the Warriors can actually force a game 6. Lucky Jelly says, hi. What's up, Lucky Jelly? Let me know your thoughts on the game. If, in fact, you already have down here, I'll get to them. Thandeka says, our role players could play better at home so we could win both home games. Both. Jeez. That might be a little bit optimistic. I need him to win one. And you know what? It's funny. I tweeted again before the game. I didn't expect them to win this game, but I needed to see something that suggests they could win one of these home games coming up, at least one. And I think I did, just because of JK and Trace, and because Jimmy, I think, will be better going forward. Now, you could say the same about Ant, and you could say Minnesota could actually still play better than the 24-point win they had in this game, but I don't know. I thought, aside from, now the margin ended up as 24, so you could say, well, the Timberwolves still won the game by 11 after that initial 13-0 start. But I actually thought the game was pretty competitive after those first 5 minutes. And so to me, if you can start out a little bit better in game three, then yeah, I think the Warriors have a chance. I legitimately think the Warriors have a chance, along with Butler playing better and along with, Thandeka just saying, our role players should play better at home, which I agree with. So we'll wait and see. But, you've obviously definitely got to win one of the next two, that's for sure. Tire basketball fences of the Warriors, the only team who has to try every single player in the rotation every time the circumstances change. You should know who you want to play at some point. I agree with that. I think it wasn't just the Steph circumstances. It was the fact the offense was so bad to start the game, and they found themselves down by nearly 20 early. So they had to try a few different things. In fairness, like he tried Trace Jackson Davis, which I was surprised with, and it actually worked. He tried Kuminga, and it didn't work initially. Like Kuminga's first stint was awful, but then he came back and made a real impact across the second and third quarter. So sometimes you just got to like this to me is an experimentation game. Like I feel like Steve was just like, well, we're not going to win this game, but I've got to find something. I've got to find something to take forward with. Okay, so this was an experimentation game. We're probably going to lose. Let me try to cook a heap of different things, see what actually fries, and we'll go with that moving forward in games 3 and 4. Right? We stole one in game 1. We won all. Ideally, we would have obviously won this game, but really at the end of the day, it's trying to get to game 6 and trying to get Steph back. Like that's what it is. It's trying to get to game 6, which means they need to win, I think, one of the next 2 at home, and then what happens in game 5, we'll wait and see. Look, if you're 3-2 down and you get a game 6, obviously back at home, and Steph's back, maybe you get an emotional lift out of that. You win game 6, and then who knows what can happen in game 7. That might be what you roll with. In saying that, maybe you like Thandeka and you think, or whoever said it before, it's like, all right, let's see if we can get both home games go up 3-1. Lucky Jelly says, I feel like JK should have been playing more in the playoffs. Don't forget, before Jimmy had multiple 30-point games. His athleticism is unmatched. I love that dunk on Gobert in the third quarter. He just played well. Like he made some mistakes, but he's always going to do that. And I think without Steph, and I said it after game 1, without Steph, you're just going to need him. Like, because he was the third leading scorer during the regular season for a reason, right? And maybe you can sit him when you've got Steph and you've got Jimmy, and therefore you can live with not having JK's offense, and you can bench him because he makes mistakes and defensively he might cost you a little bit, right? There's all these reasons, but I just think ultimately when Curry's out, you can't have your top leading scorer out and your third leading scorer. You just can't. So that means your third leading scorer has to come back into the mix. And he played 26 minutes in this game, and I'd be surprised if he played any less in game 3 and moving forward until at least Steph returns. Thanex says Dre has zero composure. He's too old to be doing the crap he does. I mean, how many times does he do that? Like he gets fouled, but then he flails and commits a flagrant or a technical foul. Like just dumb. He's now 2 technical fouls away from getting suspended, which, I mean, if it happens, that can cost you the season. I mean, that's already happened before in terms of the 2016 finals, so he needs to be careful. Lucky Jelly says, I also believe JK is our third best scorer after Curry and Jimmy, of course. So Steve, please use Kuminga. Absolutely. Empire says, based off this game, I'm assuming JK and TJD get minutes this series. Well, they have to. They have to, because I'm not sure who else. Not sure who else you can use. You basically can't use post at the moment based on the last 3 games. Guy Santos is getting a little bit of run, but man, it's not. He's like an offensive nothing. Aside from he had a couple of nice passes on cuts, but scoring the ball, he's just not going to score the ball when you need scorers without Steph. He had 3 turnovers in his 8.5 minutes, so I don't love it. Kevin Knox came out. They tried him. He had a baseline jumper there at the end of garbage time. But again, like if you're going to have him out there, it's got to be for scoring purposes, and he wasn't doing that in his stint in the second quarter. So, yeah, you're going to have to. It's JK and Trace. I don't know how you watch this game if you're Steve Kerr and think you're not going to play those guys for heavy minutes in game 3. Of course, like things can change. JK could come out, make 3 early mistakes in game 3, and then he gets pulled immediately. But I just think there's such a lack of alternatives now to Kuminga that you just have to, like, Moody is so bad. Like, Moody's so bad that Kuminga, I said it after game one, and Kuminga hadn't done anything good. He hadn't done anything good, but I said after game one, Kuminga's just got to be ahead of Moody. Like, he just has to be. And again, part of it is like, okay, he's not playing well, but he's just got this irrational confidence, and at least he can put the ball in the basket. Moses just couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. His three-point shooting has fallen off. He's got no confidence in his game whatsoever. So, yeah, JK and Trace just going to have to play significant minutes in game three and going forward. Ty Basketball fan says, even if TJD and JK would have needed rest at some point, that point wasn't the middle of the third. Agree with that. Thanex says, the worst thing is that Wolves were not playing that good. We just need to lock in, make our shots, and limit our turnovers. Agreed. I'm not sure. Even with Steph out, Minnesota don't look unbeatable. Like, and maybe that's a problem because Ant's not playing very well, and you'd expect him to get better, and therefore you expect the Timberwolves to get better, and maybe that's problematic for the Warriors. But they don't look great to me. They don't look great, and I think maybe there's an ounce of the Lakers were just absolutely that terrible on both ends that maybe they made Minnesota look a little bit better. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Like, Minnesota just won this game by 24. So let's not hate on. We can't really hate on the Timberwolves, and I think they're more than with Steph out, they're more than likely going to win this series. But even with Steph out, I think the Warriors still have a chance. And I still took something from this game in terms of faith and optimism and belief, even though the Warriors lost by 24. Arminia says Moody and Pods cannot shoot. Braxton Key is a very athletic experiment. I don't think we're going to see that in terms of Braxton Key too much moving forward. Mature BT says it's okay. The Wolves were supposed to win this game. Now let's go back home and win one of these next two home games. We got this. Yep. Tile Basketball fans says making shots and limiting turnovers is playing good offense, which they have shown no ability to do without Steph. So it's not really that simple. Mature says Jimmy is being too passive, in my opinion, needs to score more. I think you and every Warrior fan would be making that statement after the 17-point performance from Jimmy, 6 of 13, 2 of 4 from deep, 3 of 5 from the free throw line. Even like with the passive stuff, I mean, he only had 4 assists. And I know part of that is like, well, your teammates have got to make shots in order to have a bunch of assists. But yeah, just not great. And again, I don't think I really want to use the glute contusion as a huge excuse. Like, is he 100%? No, but we need to see more out of him regardless. Ty Basketball fans have seen something about Warriors fans needing to get used to the fact that Jimmy doesn't want to shoot contested layups unless he's sure he can get the foul. Look, I don't care. Like, he got that and one over Rudy in the third quarter. I think you probably show that replay to him multiple times and say, okay, you can actually go at Rudy Gobert and you can score on him, right? He's a 4-time defensive player of the year, but he's not impossible to go at, right? So I think he needs to be, and some of the jump shooting stuff, like he did make 2 of his 4 threes today, and I think at times, like some of the mid-range stuff would, if he was just a little bit more confident in it, like there's way too many times, and we've kind of got into Pods about this previously because Pods does it a bit. Way too many times Jimmy gets the ball to the paint or he gets the ball to the mid-range area, and then he just picks up his dribble and he just gets stuck. Now, to me, it's like you got to be a lot more decisive with your play, because what ends up there is like you have to reset your offense. And like, how many times do the Warriors end up getting to the end of the shot clock and they've got nothing going and it's just a failed possession because it gets all the way to the end of the shot clock? Like, I think some of the decisiveness and ultimately just the aggressiveness of Jimmy Butler, I think, has to be better. Mature says the driving kick, it's predictable by now. Anyways, good game for the bench guys to get some reps. They'll be ready for next game. We just have to win one of these next 2 home games. Moody has gone cold at the worst time. VT Vino says Moody has the yips. Hate to see it. He does. Like, he has the, if this was, I mean, it's hard to really define the yips in basketball aside from like free throw shooting, I suppose. But yeah, if there was a way to define it just in general play, I think it would be Moses Moody right now, because he's just lost all confidence. He has lost all confidence, and it's sad to see, and it's harmful to the Warriors because they actually need his 3-point shooting without Steph, but he's like not a 3-point shooter at the moment. If I was Minnesota, I'd be leaving him wide open and saying, go for your life. Like, you haven't made one here for a while. Just prove it that you can make it, and then we might start guarding you. He's just a complete non-factor on both ends of the floor, it must be said. Mature says we need a big wing who shoots well like Cam Johnson next season. Sign and trade Kuminga for Wiggins would be magical. We'll probably get into that as the off-season progresses once the Warriors are either eliminated or win the championship, of course. Tire Basketball fan says the lack of talent on this team is crazy. Moody is 3-and-D, sure, but you should have more than 2 players who can do something with the ball with the clock winding down. Yep, agree with that. Mature BT says Nick Claxton would be amazing as well. Well, like, could TJD just be a version of Nick Claxton? Today's version of TJD, yeah. Like, I thought he was good. And I think some of this stuff is like the Warriors without Steph. Like, there's a little bit more pick and roll stuff with Jimmy. Jimmy found him on a lob at one point there. So there's a little bit more in terms of TJD being involved in the offense rather than being asked to be what Loon often is, which is, just a screen setter to get guys open off the ball. And maybe, you post up and you get into your mid-post action where you're basically there just as a facilitator. Like TJD, I think, and then this is why if I was a team like the Lakers, where you got Luka Doncic and you're in need of a center, I think TJD would be a great buy low option for the Lakers because he needs to be in an offense where he's running a heap of pick and rolls because he can therefore use his athleticism, try and get a heap of lob dunks and stuff like that. So I'm not sure the Warriors are necessarily great for that, but maybe without Steph and maybe you just have to run a heap of Jimmy pick and roll and stuff like that. Maybe that's where TJD can actually be useful as we saw in this game. Tire Basketball fan says, just look at the Wolves. They have way more than 2. Agree with that. Tire Basketball fan also says, it just feels like most teams experiment in the beginning of the season, but the Warriors never stop experimenting, partially due to lack of talent, but got to wonder what else goes into it. Lucky Jelly says, for game 3, my starting 5 would be Pods, Hield, Kuminga, Butler, Green. Yep, that's what I went with before. I'd be shocked. I'd be legitimately shocked if it was anything else. I just don't know what else it could be. Like, could you start Trace and go back to the Draymond Trace double big combination? I don't think so. Not when you've also got Jimmy and Pods, who, Jimmy's not necessarily known as a 3-point shooter. Pods is taking threes, but he hasn't hit many at all basically since that game 4 or whatever, where he had 25 points or whatever it was. So, you got to have, Kuminga's not a shooter either, but at least he's going to take the odd one here and there as opposed to Trace, who's not going to do anything beyond dunk the ball, essentially. Berserkman says, I do think Jimmy was too passive, but don't want to rag on him too much. But you go and look at the Cavs missing 3 main guys, and Donovan Mitchell took a lot of shots and tried to carry his team. Yep. Tire Basketball fan says, I agree that Jimmy should be more aggressive, but I'm also prepared for the possibility that at this point in his career, he just won't. Well, he has been. Like, if you look at the numbers, and I've got them up right here, if you looked at that Clippers game, the end of the regular season, he had 30 points. He had 25, 7, and 6 in game 1 against the Rockets in 42 minutes. So I think he's shown it slightly. I think it's more the lack of confidence he has in his jump shot to me, which is really the defining thing in this version of Jimmy, which is very, very good and very helpful. And being like the playoff Jimmy we know from his time with the Heat, where he was knocking down mid-range jump shots and he was supremely confident in that. And he was having 40, 50-point games. Tire Basketball fan also says, like expecting Steph and Dre to stop having dumb turnovers, they won't no matter how much it's annoying. Oyster says, I know Moody isn't shooting well, but I remember 2 trash back-to-back threes he had to put up because of shot clock. Yeah, I mentioned that before, and I do have some sympathy for him for that. Like, this is 2 games in a row now. It happened in game 1 as well, where there's like absolutely nothing going, and somehow he has the ball at the end of the possession, and he's forced to. He had one where he just dribbled out the shot clock on Anthony Edwards. Like, he didn't even put a shot up. He's just like, I'm just going to take the turnover. I do have some sympathy for him on this, but he's still not playing well. Like, it's as simple as that. Berserk Monk says, at least Steph can't be blamed for the turnovers today. Tire Basketball fan says, depends who you ask. Bleacher Report still posting his face for some reason. In regard to who? In regard to Steph. Just Blow says, how bad was it, boys? Didn't watch the game, Just Blow. Look, the 20. it'll say 24 points. As I said this before, it'll say, the final margin will say 24, but I don't think it was horrific. The start of the game was horrific. The first 5 minutes, you go down 13-0 and you basically never recover from that. So the first 5 minutes were terrible. The next two quarters were actually like decent. And particularly the start of the third quarter where you cut the margin from 17-7. You think you got something rolling, and then some turnovers, some silly, like legitimately just silly Kerr substitutions, taking Kuminga out, taking Hield out, taking Draymond out at that point. Just wasn't the right move whatsoever. And, from then on, Timberwolves kind of take control again. But to me, like, there was enough competitiveness in probably 2.5 quarters that suggests to me that back on their home floor, they have a chance. They have a chance of winning one of these next two games. If not both. I'd be surprised if they won both. Very surprised. But they have a chance to take at least one. Tire Basketball Fan says, Jimmy's shown that he can be aggressive at times, but I don't think these games where we're frustrated going away, even in the playoffs. It's a problem. It's a problem that Jimmy's going to have to try, and I think part of it is also on Steve in working out, okay, how can we find a way where Jimmy gets more looks around the paint where he's not got heaps of guys. And part of it is like he's a guy that wants to make the right play. And, if you get to the paint and there's Rudy Gobert, 4-time defensive player of the year right there, and there's maybe a couple other guys there, he's like, well, do I really want to take a contested, shot that I'm probably going to miss, or do I want to kick it out to an open shooter? And that open shooter might not be a high percentage guy who you want taking threes, but I think Jimmy's still going to be like, well, I'm going to have more faith in a wide open jumper than I am going up against three guys. Now, should he? No, I think there's times where he probably should take it more on himself and actually look to score over Gobert or whoever's down in the paint. But hopefully we see more of that moving forward in this series because the Warriors are going to need it. Lucky Jelly says, I feel like we should trade for Jonas Valanciunas in the offseason because the Kings don't use him at all because of Sabonis and he's a great veteran big man that can help us in mental post and trace. I just don't think there's enough. I don't know. He's making what, like $10 million a year? I don't know. I don't think. I mean, who are you going to trade for him? Because the Warriors moving forward are only going to have Buddy at around that price range, and I don't think you're trading Buddy Hield for Jonas Valanciunas, so I'm not sure how you could do it. Berserk Monk says, what is Jimmy's field goal percentage on contested mid-ranges? I'll have a look. Well, it's not even contested. It's just mid-range jumpers in general. God, I'm having issues with my eyes recently. Let me check this. If we just look at the playoff numbers, right? Looking at the tracking. So he is currently shooting 42.9% on pull-up jumpers, which is a lot better than the 23.8% he's shooting on catch and shoot attempts. So he's shooting 52.4% on less than 10 feet. Just checking some more things here. So Jimmy Butler in the regular season was 35.6% from the mid-range, which is not great. In the playoffs, he is 35%, so essentially the same. He's 7 of 20 on mid-range attempts so far. That's not ideal. What did he do in the 23 playoffs? It's going to say what he did on like mid-range. Maybe it was like the same, but he just shot so many more of them that you just thought it was better. No, he was 42.5%. 42.5% on mid-range attempts in the 2023 playoffs, and was look at the 3-point numbers. He was 44.4% on left corner threes, 50% on right corner threes. So he's just making a heap more jumpers. Simple as that. And I just feel like he's not confident. There's just very few times where he gets to the mid-range area and rises up. It feels like when he does take those, that they're kind of end of the shot clock. This is what I have to do kind of thing. But other than that, he's not really looking for that early in the shot clock to me. Ty Basketball fan says, hopefully game 3 is that I'm taking 25 shots no matter what game. Lucky Jelly says, maybe trade for Jonas, Looney, and maybe a second round pick or two. Looney makes about $7.5 million annually. Well, Looney, he's coming the end of his contract. He'll be a free agent in the off season. So unless it's a sign and trade, makes it difficult. Which Ty Basketball fan just points out. Young West says no Curry is the equivalent of OKC without SGA, Denver without Joker, Minnesota without Edwards, not winning a series without those guys. Yep. Ty Basketball fan says, which they probably won't do for more than the minimum. Berserk Monk says, yeah, if he's shooting kind of bad from mid-range, and that's why he's passing a lot more. If he's not in the 50% range, there's more value in like a 36% three-point shooter. Fair. Ty Basketball fan says, most similar to Jokic, Jamo, Nuggets and Warriors absolutely collapse offensively without them. The other teams are obviously worse, but survive better. I think the Warriors are, with Butler now, the Warriors are going to be better than the Nuggets would be without Jokic. Like the Nuggets without, and this is why I think Jokic is MVP, right? And maybe SGA shouldn't lose value because his team's better necessarily. So maybe SGA still wins MVP, and maybe he shouldn't lose MVP votes because, well, his team's better, and therefore we think that the Thunder could handle business a little bit better than the Nuggets could without Jokic. But that's like, to me, if Jokic went down for a significant period, I just don't think Denver could win a game. Like, they've got Jamal Murray, they've got Porter. Porter's horrific at the moment. They've got Aaron Gordon, but to me, like, they would be, I don't think they'd make the playoffs. I don't think they would make the playoffs without Jokic, as I think the Thunder might still have a chance to make the playoffs without SGA. Maybe. I just think they're that good defensively that could get them to the playoffs. And yeah, the Warriors with Jimmy obviously are going to be a better team, I think. Because I think I just trust Jimmy more than Jamal Murray. I don't know. I think the Warriors would be in a better spot without Steph than the Nuggets would be without Jokic. Berserk Monk says Jokic is definitely the better player, but SGA is going to win the award. I think I agree with that. Ty Basketball fan says SGA is winning just a classic MVP season, no matter what our opinions are. He's already won. I'm with Berserk Monk. Is that I at no point have I ever said that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a better player than Nikola Jokic. Like, Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world to me, and by a reasonable distance. But I do think that SGA will probably win MVP. All right, guys, I'm going to finish it up there. Been going for nearly 40 minutes. Thanks to all of you that have come in, tuned in, and commented. Thanks to those of you as well that are watching the replay or listening via your podcast feed. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. And follow me on X/Twitter at POK252. That's POK252. I'll be back for another post-game live after Game 3 on Saturday. Let's hope for a better result from a Warrior perspective. Again, this game lost by 24, but I don't think the Timberwolves are unbeatable, even with Steph out. I think the Warriors still do have a chance. I think the Trace and JK kind of rotation discoveries, those guys as legitimately helpful players in this game, could mean something for the Warriors moving forward, but they're clearly, as we've been talking about, they're clearly going to need more from Jimmy as his series progresses. They're not going to win games if he only goes for 17 points. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for the ongoing support, and I'll see you on the next one.